All right, guys, today's video, I'm going to be doing a wheel swap on the Humvee. Going to be swapping from the stock 12-bolt wheels to these 24-bolt paired wheels. I picked up a set of 5. Obviously, I've already done all the hard work of taking the original tires and the run flats off, and I do not run flats in my tires. This should be a pretty easy, straightforward swap over. Going to ether bomb the tires to inflate them or set the beads, and then should just be a couple hours of just popping apart wheels and popping wheels back together. One thing I will tell you, I run a Class D or a D-rated tire. I don't haul a load of the Humvee, even though it is a 1097. I'm not hauling the heavy loads. I don't have armor. I hardly ever even have 4 people in it, so those tires are great for me. I will tell you that the E-rated tires that came off of this thing, or off of these wheels, the Goodyear MTR E-rated tires, out of the 15 or so tires that I've broken down and taken apart, those were probably the most difficult, stiffest tires I've ever tried to take off of wheels. There was some BF Goodrich E-rated tires on some of these wheels. Those came off. I couldn't tell the difference between those and a D-rated or the Wrangler, the earlier Wrangler tires on these, the first set of radials that these things had. Those come apart pretty easy as well. But those Goodyear Wrangler MTRs in the E-rated, those were brutal. I use a high lift jack. I go right into the end of my bumper, and I use it to the foot plate on it to go against the rim and the bead. Jack the Humvee up. It usually pops them apart pretty easy. Then I use a couple of pry bars to separate it the rest of the way around. For the naysayers, this is a military bumper. It is not an airlift bumper. It's a factory installed M1097 bumper. It does have, I don't know if you can see them, but in here there is the NSN and the manufacturer number, and all that stuff is on here. It's not a cheap aftermarket one, so it took a little research to find out the info on it, but it is in fact a correct military bumper. But let me get the first tire off and get to work. All right, some of you guys might have lug nut envy from how you just saw me take those lug nuts off. And 2 months ago, I would have had lug nut envy as well. So some people will tell you that these are locking lug nuts. And I don't believe that's the case. I think it's from these things getting wound on and off their entire life with an impact gun. So how I got mine to come off so easy was I called Hummer Parts Guy and I ordered new lug nuts. They were like 75, 80 cents a piece, not including shipping. And this is what I got. They've been put on the truck, and I just took them off for the first time. They came right off. And you see this ring right here, which is nice and shiny. On and off with an impact gun in that one spot where they contact the wheel, eventually it squeezes this lip in and it makes them tight to come off. If it were a locking lug nut, it would be crimped at the back. And obviously I'm putting this on backwards, but the crimp for a lock nut is usually on the back side. And they wouldn't spin on like that if they were locking. So the way you can tell if your lug nuts are the problem is if you have to go through half a battery on your impact gun to get off 2 lug nuts because it's under full impact and almost full torque the whole time coming off. I swapped to the new lug nuts. That's the first time I've taken them off since I installed them. Everything seemed to work good. For the price, I would just order them from him, not screw around at the parts store. This same lug nut, I think at the parts store was about $350, and that's O'Reilly Advanced, whatever. They're not cheap, but they're very reasonable through Hummer Parts Guy, and he does sometimes have a free shipping special if you meet a certain threshold, which is why I got the lug nuts, because it helped me get up over that threshold to get free shipping on the rest of the parts that I was ordering that day. But just a little info for you. Before I take these wheels apart, I do like to spray them. A little bit of PB Blaster, WD-40, liquid wrench, whatever your flavor is, just to help them come off a little bit. I'm not going to use these wheels again. I'm going to keep them for spares. So I don't really care, but at the same time, I don't want to fight the whole time I'm taking it apart. So just throw a little on there. It usually works pretty good. Now there's no run flats in these, so they should just pop right apart, just like that. Set this off to the side. Now, I do run the heaviest airsoft pellets I could find. I think they're like 32 gram a piece pellets. I do run those in my wheels. It seems to help. My next set of tires, I really want to see if I can get a local tire shop to balance them for me. I just feel like it can't hurt and it might work a little better than the airsoft pellets, because I do notice at certain times I feel like they're not balanced at all. But sometimes I feel like they're very well balanced, so it's a toss-up. I'm actually going to put just a touch of PB around the O-ring to help it seal, and I'm going to give the studs a little squirt. These wheels, to the best of my knowledge, do not have an alignment hole like the 12-bolt wheels do. On a 12-bolt wheel, I'll show you real quick, you're going to have this alignment hole right here, and there's a corresponding hole on the face of the wheel, where is that? Which is right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but this is not a bolt hole, it's the alignment hole to line up the two halves of the wheel. That's a newer style 12-bolt wheel. Apparently the earlier ones didn't have that, but the newer ones do. And the 24-bolt, as far as I can tell, there's no marks, there's no divots. There's really nothing that indicates what should go where. One thing I want to point out is when you buy surplus wheels, or any used wheel for that fact, check the bolt holes. Make sure that they didn't get run loose or over torqued, or anything to mess up the taper in the seating area on the lug nuts, on the lug holes. And the other thing, I already did this when I took them apart. Inspect your wheels. Surplus wheels especially, they may have scrapped the truck, they may have been extras that never got put on a truck, they might have jumped or flipped the truck and you might have a bent wheel, or even worse, a crack. So do a good inspection on your wheels, especially anything used. Last thing you want to do is take well, this doesn't have the run flat, but typically 158-pound tire and wheel, 60 miles an hour, have it come off the vehicle, causing a wreck that could injure you and other people, or send the tire out of control by itself, winding down the road and wipe somebody out. Be tough to live with that. So I am going to tighten in a cross pattern. I know I didn't take them off that way, but I'm going to tighten them that way. that's the wheels being tight. I believe, yeah, I'm gonna have to ether bomb these. So let me get that set up to do. I like to use a milk crate. They fit pretty decent right on top of the wheel, so when I put it underneath, it's gonna hold the wheel up and not touch the tire. They're light, they're easy to use, and you can grab them. Walmart sells them. This is a broken one that came off of a milk truck somewhere. It wasn't serviceable anymore. It's not stolen. It's somebody's garbage that I ended up picking up somewhere along the line. All right. So, I said I was going to ether bomb them. Going to use some of the world's cheapest starting fluid. I want the air gap up top so I can see that it seats. And there's a couple of things you need to know when you do this. Some people will tell you to take the valve stem out because it allows the air to flow in faster, which is true. However, it also allows the air to flow out faster. So if you're ether bombing this, one of the things that happens very quickly is these tires obviously use an explosion to inflate the tire. Well, that cools off very quickly. It can suck all the air right back out and then DB just as fast as it went on if you're not quick. I like to hook the air to it and run the air. I like to leave the valve core in because it gives me a few minutes to, or not a few minutes, but a few seconds to get the air hose on there, make sure the air is flowing. If I have to stop and check something, I don't have to worry about the tire collapsing again. So I like to leave the valve core in. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer to fill the tire. I'm not running a race here, I really don't care. I just don't want to do stuff 2, 3, 4 times. So let me get this all set up and ready to go. Get my airline set. I'll be back. All right, so I like to use a MAP gas torch. I like to use some cheap starting fluid because, one, it's probably all the same, and why pay for a name brand? A lot of people think you need to use a half a can in each tire. Reality is you don't. Anybody that knows anything about fire or burning any kind of a fuel, a liquid fuel, is that the fuel itself burns from the vapors, not the fuel, like the liquid. I prefer to use like the cheapest ether you can find. You don't need a ton of it. A locking air chuck does help, so you don't have to race around and try to fix it, fidget with it. We do want it to pop, which is kind of the motherfucker. Give it the air. Ether is in. Give it the air. Now I did go valve core out on that one, and I'll tell you why, because the damn, this chuck is not hanging onto that valve stem very well. There's enough in there to hold it. This is a locking chuck. Usually it works pretty good, but for some reason it's not grabbing that stem. I'm gonna go switch to my gauged fill tool. I run 22 pounds of air in them. I'll air this up to 25, and as it cools off after the burn, it'll actually be about 22 psi. It'll lose about 3 psi during that. I will fill these to roughly 25, and then later on today I'll go for a ride. Maybe tomorrow I'll double check the tire pressure with a better tire gauge. This is just a cheap Harbor Freight one, and I find that it's close, but being kind of a tire nerd, I like my air pressure perfect. I'll do the roll it through water, roll it on the floor, which is just about the same as the chalk test. I'll make sure that my tires have the right air pressure for the vehicle weight. And as I said before, I pretty much, I drive this thing myself. I don't have a lot of passengers usually. I don't have a lot of weight in the truck. So I don't run a lot of air pressure, but it's perfect for the contact patch of the tires. This one's pretty much set. We'll just throw it back on and get on with our day. So somebody attempted to machine balance this wheel at one point. And if those are a ½ ounce a piece, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ounces. So there's either 5 or 10 ounces of lead in it. You don't have to heat them up, but boy, it helps get them right off of there. Yeah, those are ½ ounce. So there's 10 ounces of weight on that one wheel, that one spot. So if you have to take any off, just a couple seconds with the MAP gas torch will let you get them right off pretty easy. And then, I don't know, it's an Army truck. I drive it off-road. I want it clean and neat, but there's a little bit of dust in here, not enough to hurt anything. Certainly not enough to throw it off balance or make me worry about anything. And it's not a show truck, so we're not going for that crystal clear show finish on these things. And yes, for everybody wondering, I will go back around and I will torque everything. Usually do 125 on the lugs, and I usually do 100 on the bolts. Just to be safe, good peace of mind. There we go. 12 bolt to 24 bolt wheel swap over. It definitely looks more aggressive, that's for sure. I don't know. I guess I just did it for the looks. Didn't really have any negative concerns with the 12 bolt wheels. Happened to get a really great deal on some 24 bolts. I'll tell you the truth, I was actually buying these wheels in hopes that they would have had the multi-piece aluminum run flats, because I would like to run a run flat and a bead block in these wheels. However, the Hutchinson ones, they're not impossible to deal with, but you know, I kind of feel like life's too short to deal with stuff like that. I've run 10,000 miles or so on this truck with no run flats, no bead locks. Haven't had an issue. I don't air down. I don't off-road much. I have done some pretty evasive maneuvers in this thing at some speed, never rolled the tire off. I would like them in there for authenticity, and obviously if you know, you do ever get a flat, you can at least get off the roadway and move yourself to safety. But those Hutchinsons, man, I bought the crank tool to winch them down, and even doing that, you still have to have like a crane or a winch, like an engine crane or a winch to pull them out of the tire. Getting them back in was kind of a pain. So I'm searching for either the early style magnesium bolt together ones or the newer, I think they're like a 4 or a 5 piece. They have 3-piece aluminum that locks together with a bead lock ring, and then they have an outer rubber ring that slides over. I just want something that I, in the field, if I had to, could change a tire with the tools in the truck and not have to have, you know, lifts and cranes and winches and all that stuff to fix a tire if I wanted to swap it on a wheel. So I want something that I can manage, you know, minimal tools, minimal toolkit, and still get myself in or out of the situation and be able to put a new tire on a wheel if I have to. You know, I might be going on a long distance trip, may use my spare, might want to replace a tire, and I don't need to get laughed at by every tire shop along the way, or be stuck in a situation where I can't do it myself. So I want the multi-piece bead locks. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this truck, and then we'll take it out of the garage, take it for a ride, and I'll show you how she looks outside, I guess with the 24 bolt wheels on it if you guys want to see it. Thanks for following along. I'll be back shortly. Just doing up another one here. It pretty much doesn't matter when you use airsoft pellets. You're going to lose them. I cannot even stand up a tire without having airsoft pellets fall out of it. So I did switch from the milk crate to a significantly larger piece of wood. And why? Well, it works. So I was having an issue with the nozzle of the air chuck. I thought it might have been the way it was sitting on the board or on the milk crate, so I got rid of the milk crate for a few minutes just to try it out with a block of wood. The block of wood seemed to work really good, so it kept it. It works. Obviously, it was the air chuck. So, some of you are going to notice I'm not changing these O-rings. They are the red ones, so I believe they're silicone. Somebody might correct me, but I believe they're a silicone O-ring. And they seem to be in really good shape. All the tires that I took off held air, so they weren't leaking. I'm giving a little squirt of PB just to help them seat a little bit better if that's even necessary. I do have new ones. If I put one together, I'm not saying I have all the time in the world, but if I put one together and it leaks, I can change an O-ring. But why waste one if you don't need it? And the ones that are in there are good. Now, I mentioned that I was kind of a tire geek. I rotate my tires regularly to keep them in good shape, or the best shape that I can. One thing that you can do, and this is a great time to do it, I've already done it to these at one point. When I mount them either all DOT dates in or DOT dates out. I'll drive the truck 3,000, 4,000 miles. Then I'll rotate the tires in the next pattern. Fronts go straight forward. I'm sorry, fronts cross to the rear, rear goes straight forward. And then what I'll do is you'll start to notice at that point that you'll get inside or outside wear or whatever. And it doesn't matter if your truck's lined up perfectly or you got a brand new BMW or whatever the heck you choose to drive. You're going to notice at some point in your life some uneven tire wear. These things are easy enough to take apart. The second time I rotate my tires, I'll pull the wheel, split the rim, I'll put the tires, I'll flip them over and put them back in the same position. Then I'll run them for another 3,000 miles. And I'd like to think that I'd rotate them again and then flip them again. But I got to tell you, after 12,000, 15,000 miles, they're probably going to get replaced. I'm not going to run them down to the point where they're just skins and cords hanging out. I do want some tread in case I get off-road. So I'll probably change these tires when they have 30% life left in them or a little bit more. And it's just how it is. This chuck is just not being a friend today. I don't know why. Feel there's tire pressure here. I know the bead's set, but my gauge keeps bouncing back to zero. I don't know if you can see that or not. So that's probably the tire cooling off after the little pop of the ether. And when it does that, it obviously creates a vacuum when the hot air cools off and contracts. And now I'm starting to get some air pressure. So all that whole time, showing zero air pressure, is basically just making up for the contraction of the hot air. The next tire, I'm going to try a different chuck. I think I have another one of those locking ones. See how that works. All right, so earlier when I checked these, when I set them, it was about an hour ago, and this tire was set at 25 with this gauge. Right now this gauge is showing right around 20 PSI. I have a better gauge that I like to use. Seems to be a little bit more consistent, a little bit higher quality. And this one's also, it's about 19 PSI right now. So I want these set at 22, so I'm going to bump them up a little bit. and go around the truck and set them where I want them. Let's see if we can get it to 22, and then we'll check them when I get home or tomorrow, and see what they're down to. Because like I said, as those wheels cool off, or the air inside cools off, it's going to contract. You'll lose air pressure. Yeah, right where I want it. So I'm going to do the rest of these tires. I'm going to go for a test drive. All right, guys, here it is. Just got back from a quick road test. Everything was fine. Wheels felt like they were pretty well balanced, so no bent rims or anything like that. It was a bunch of work, but I think it brings the truck up to date, makes it look a little bit better. Basically, that's all I did it for. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time.